Cloudcast Media.
Drew Schlosberg Spotlight on the Community Show, amplifying the voices of social impact organizations, entrepreneurs, local nonprofits, and other community champions who shape the culture, creativity, and connectivity of San Diego. Brought to you by Mission Fed Credit Union, bringing good things to San Diego for over 60 years. Learn more about what is good for you and good for all by visiting www.missionfed.com.
I'm Drew Schlosberg of Cloudcast Media. It is a great day. One of my good friends and longtime colleagues is in the house with us, and that is Scott McGaugh, founding marketing director of the USS Midway Museum, current board member. He's also on the advisory board of the Navy SEAL Museum. We're going to be chatting about that as well. And he is an absolute phenomenal writer. He's only written 12 books, so I'm a little disappointed he's not up to 50 yet. I'm sure he'll be at that number by the end of the year. Scott, how are you?
Doing well, Drew. It's a delight to be back with you again, share a little bit about what's going on in my orbits and how that's so important to the rest of San Diego.
Yeah, it really is, and really want to give you a shout out. Certainly your work on bringing the Midway to San Diego. You're one of these relentless supporters, as was our good friend Patty Roscoe, who's been on the show many times, as you know. And it was the fact that you, and I know you hate this because you hate getting the credit. You want to dole it out as you always do. But it did take someone like you to say, man, this needs to be here. It's going to work. If we find the right guy, and of course you hit the home run with Mac McLaughlin. Yeah. Talk about those early days.
Well, I tell you, looking back, it was an honor volunteering for what I thought was going to be 3 months. It will be 30 years as of January 2026. But what was most remarkable, I think, that the campaign to get Midway here took 12 years. 3 times as long as it took America to wage and win World War II. And yet the original founding executive committee in 1992, people with tremendous demands on their time, community leaders, 80% of them were still involved in 2004 when Midway opened. And I think that very persistence and dedication to the vision that you just talked about is really the secret sauce that made Midway possible.
Well, and it's still there. It's reflective of the bread and butter of the Midway, as Mac always talked about, and current CEO Terry Kraft. It's the volunteers.
Yes.
And it's the docents and so forth, and all the folks like you that were there from the beginning and the grit. It holds a very special part for me, as you well know, Scott, because you've been heavily involved with the Classroom of the Future Foundation since its inception, 1997. I'm honored to say I have too. And Midway U literally was born out of the collaboration of CFF, as you well know, because you were there in the Midway. And if I didn't give a shout out to Rudy Shappy, I should be, rocked off the plank or something.
Yeah, walk off the plank, exactly.
Yeah. And so that was a wonderful talk about the big project you have going on now with Freedom Park.
Well, it really is the last leg of Midway's official arrival in San Diego. It was a condition of approval by the Coastal Commission back in 2003, and that was to create a Veterans Park on Navy Pier. We are now once there was available parking nearby. That took a longer than people thought for that opportunity to take place, IQHQ's parking. It's now there, so Freedom Park is a major $60 million fundraising campaign. We are well underway, and construction is going to start next year. It is basically a 5-acre park focusing on Freedom Park. There will be some parking on the pier for school buses and the like, and then nearby parking. So a long time coming. We're very excited. We've got a lot of major donors and the general public stepping up, and it's going to be, I think, a great addition to San Diego's waterfront.
Well, and it certainly just, focuses on what you folks have done since you hit the ground running way before 2004. And Scott, we're very proud of this at CFF. Before the doors opened for the Midway, the very first event was our Innovation and Education Awards, now in our 23rd year. But we did it in the hangar deck. And I remember this so clearly. I'm sure you were at the event as well.
I was.
And so it was a great, bond for you guys, and everything you folks have done, whether it's with the docents or it's the volunteers or the staff or anybody involved, is always done at the highest level of customer service. Talk about that.
Well, that really has been the mantra. Is we're a museum and we have a noble mission, a vision, of being the symbol of American freedom. And yet, at the end of the day, we're also a business, and we recognize that from the very beginning. So, customer service, employee culture, in our case, volunteers, was really a cornerstone under Matt McLaughlin from the very beginning. And that's why today we have nearly 700 volunteers, San Diegans giving their time, donating 250,000 hours every single year, Drew. That's the equivalent of 100 free employees, if you will. We wouldn't be successful without those volunteers.
And anybody who's been on the Midway and has come across those volunteers, whether it be the docents or just people working in the gift shop, or, they absolutely love to be on the Midway. And anybody who's been in, different businesses, whether it's museums or ballparks, it's reflective of the organization. And, you look at the people that work on the Midway, and man, they love to be there, as do the people that come in. And because of that, what a popular museum. Talk about your success.
Well, far beyond what Patty Roscoe and Malin Burnham and everyone else and I ever thought, and all the different business plans we put together. Just before COVID, we reached 1.4 million visitors, the most visited chip museum in the world. There are 35,000 museums of all types in the United States. Within a decade, we were in the top 10 on TripAdvisor in terms of our reviews. And again, as you know, that speaks to the culture. It speaks to the volunteers. The fact that, we get to walk in the footsteps of the Midway crew that served for 47 years. And most remarkably, I still shudder at the thought, Drew, the average age of the Midway crew, more than 100,000 sailors, all male, was 19. A year and a half out of high school.
Well, and that's anybody who's worked with the military, knows this. And you look at, the current folks, whether it depends on whatever branch it was, Navy and the Marine, Army, Coast Guard. You got these 19 and 20-year-olds operating I don't think the machinery cost $4 bazillion back in the day.
Not quite.
But they were expensive. And these folks are on the top of their game on how to, manage a very, very expensive equipment, but technical off, the charts. And really kudos to them. And that's what you folks have done a great job on the Midway, is preserving that legacy. We're chatting with Scott McGaugh. He's a founding marketing director and current board member for the USS Midway Museum. He's also involved in the new Navy SEAL Museum. We're going to chat about that in a few minutes here, opening on October the 4th. And he's a best-selling author. We can't wait to hear about his 12th book that he has written. I'm Drew Schlosberg of Cloudcast Media, listening to another edition of the Drew Schlosberg Spotlight on the Community Show. We are the nation's longest-running community podcast. We're now in our 19th year. Brought to you by Mission Fed Credit Union. Just doing amazing things in San Diego for 6 decades, whether it's food insecurity, whether it's the homeless, whether it's financial literacy, they're with you shoulder to shoulder. So talk a little bit about the Navy SEAL Museum.
I've been honored to serve on this board of advisors for a number of years. It's been probably 5 or 6 years in the making. They came to Midway when they first started the notion of expanding from their museum in Florida to San Diego. They wanted to draw on Midway's marketing or Midway's experience as a startup. So it is now opening on October 4th. Tickets are on sale now online. It is located in the former Museum of Contemporary Art building downtown at the trolley station on Broadway. A very interactive, latest virtual reality. Visitors are going to live the life of a Navy SEAL.
Wow.
And they've followed, to some extent, the model of Midway. All the docents at the museum are former SEALs. So how often do you get the chance, do visitors get the chance to walk up and shake the hand of a SEAL and hear unclassified stories that he can share in defending our freedom?
Yeah, and what makes it even better, I mean, it really is a hop, skip, and a jump from the Midway Museum.
Walking distance.
Walking distance from that, and of course, they're still working to develop that area as well. But I want to, sort of, get back to the Midway on this. You folks host a zillion events.
Yeah.
400 military events and ceremonies annually. That's not counting the nonprofit events. But when I get back to something you talked about as running a business, you folks have been so successful, and it's unusual for a nonprofit to create such a robust foundation as you have, and to give to the nonprofits. Talk about that. I'm sure that was Mac's idea. Mac and the team.
Yeah, absolutely. It was not, to be honest with you, part of the business plan, if you will, of the founders before Midway got here, because we never envisioned the success and the support of San Diego to make this possible. So when we got to a point, maybe 15 years in, 12 years in, that we realized we had the resources to do more than what we originally envisioned. Mac really led that thinking along with the board of directors. We ultimately founded or established a USS Midway Foundation, the grant giving arm. So looking back retrospectively this morning just a little bit to realize that not only was Midway, the vision of Midway, successful, but then to be able to spin off, if you will, a foundation to help mission-aligned nonprofits, it just makes involvement that much more rewarding.
Well, and it just takes that type of leadership. It also takes that also type of business gravitas to make that money.
Sure.
But now that you have it and say, listen, we want to give back. This community has been great to us. And certainly, the visitors that don't live in this community, they come and, go on the ship as well. And listen, it has made a big difference with us at Classroom of the Future Foundation. I want to thank you very much,
from the beginning,
Scott, from the very, very beginning.
Yes.
But I know you have a lot to do with that aspect, as well. And what's great about the Midway and is the learning, and something that's very, very proud of Max and Terry Kraft, the current CEO, talks about it. How many students and teachers do you have come on? 60,000 a year, 80,000?
Yeah, we're close to about 40,000 now. And the education was always going to be a cornerstone.
Right.
That was part of the original vision of Patty and Malin and others as we put the plan together. Not nearly to the extent that has been so successful. We're focusing on STEM initially in elementary schools, matching the existing curriculum so it would make sense and not be an intrusion, expanding into high school in different ways. And now what we're doing in addition to that is the Midway Institute for Teachers. We're now teaching the teachers in the summertime on sabbatical, provided by profits from the Midway on stipends and so on, so that we are now educating and inspiring high school teachers literally from around the world, 60, 70 of them every summer. So they go home and then teach their teachers, their colleagues, and future generations of students in ways that we never imagined in the beginning.
Well, and you do this virtually. And I don't think people realize that, yes, it's always nice to be on board when you're learning these things, but you have an unbelievable virtual education footprint, do you not? We
do. And that was a real challenge, and it's been a relatively recent development. You've got this gorgeous studio here in San Diego. We're operating on an aircraft carrier that was built in 1944. So the challenges in terms of the environment, sound, internet connection for many years in the early days, all those things had to be overcome as we developed the technology and the resources to achieve this vision.
We come back from break, Scott, on two things, because Terry Kraft will never come back on my show if we don't talk about the new intelligence exhibit.
Oh, yes.
Exactly, yes. Since he was a part of it. Yes. And then we want to get into the 12th nonfiction military book, Sitting Ducks, debuts in June of 2026, and some of the others when we return with Scott McGaugh, founding marketing director and current board member for the USS Midway Museum, on the advisory board of the soon-to-be open Navy SEAL Museum on October 4, and best-selling author. I'm Drew Schlosberg, and we will be right back.
When you do your banking with Mission Fed, you get great rates on auto and home loans. That's good for you, but something good also happens for a lot of other people. We're not for profit, so we put money back into the community to help lots of great nonprofits to keep San Diego strong. So you're not just getting something good, you're doing something good. Come to Mission Fed. It's banking that's good for all.
Brand amplification is the DNA of Cloudcast Media, and our code is the powerful blending of sound, voice, and storytelling to lift local brands and their communities. Whether it is our Brandcast, Schoolcast, or Causecast platforms, the unifying ethos is all about this community, the one you call home. If you dare to dream and want to explore the brand amplification of Cloudcast, a national leader in local podcasting and other Winfluence strategies, please visit us at cloudcast.us.
I'm Drew Schlosberg with Cloudcast Media. You're listening to another edition of Drew Schlosberg Spotlight on the Community Show. We are the nation's longest-running community podcast. Very proud of that in our 19th year. Brought to you by Mission Fed Credit Union. 6 decades of doing great things for people that live in San Diego County. And speak about great things for people living in San Diego County, we have with us Scott McGaugh, founding marketing director and current board member for the USS Midway Museum. Also, he's involved in the Navy SEAL Museum. That'll be opened up October 4th. And he's a best-selling author. New York Times has written his 12th book will come out on June of 2026. But before we get to all your authorship, talk about the new intelligence exhibit.
The new intelligence exhibit is just below the flight deck up on Midway, and it's really where the aviators and the intel officers planned missions. It's an area we had wanted to develop for a long time, and with our CEO and former aviator on Midway, whose father served on Midway, Terry Kraft, he really galvanized that with his contacts in the intelligence community. And he served aboard Midway and flew missions during Operation Desert Storm. So now visitors have a chance to get a real sense of what it takes to plan combat missions. It's the side of Top Gun movies that you don't see, that aren't filmed, but our docents who are highly trained, and many of them who have served in those spaces, give you a very real sense of where Terry spent literally all his time for weeks and weeks on end, along with his fellow pilots, planning the missions, whose little clips we sometimes saw on CNN back in that time.
Well, it was interesting, Scott, and you were there. We were honored to do a special remote on the Midway, and got to walk through the exhibit. You had a big sort of a grand opening for your members, and Charles Parisi, my business partner and the founder and CEO of Cloudcast Media, were there, and it was a great event walking through this exhibit. You can see Terry was beaming with it. We brought a couple of his colleagues on at the chat about it, and certainly a work in progress on this. And everything you guys touch, it always seems to turn to gold, and it doesn't happen overnight.
No,
it is the hours and hours you spend in the meticulous details that are done way before the project starts. And then what you continue once the project is there, which leads me to your books. Now, I've known Scott for a long time. He worked for an agency, very, very successful agency called Matthews Mark. Full disclosure, they were one of the ones that we worked with when I was running community and public relations for the Union Tribune. So Scott obviously has some good writing in his background, and which is really dear to my heart, is that he was the publisher of a newspaper in Durango, if I'm not mistaken.
Exactly.
How long did you do that?
About 5 years. I was my high school editor, Monte Vista High School here in San Diego. I was the only kid in class in high school, Drew, who rejoiced when the teacher required a term paper. It's in my blood.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you haven't stopped. When did you have the first epiphany to, I'm going to write a book? Obviously, you were heavily involved in the Midway. Your first books dealt with the Midway. Was this always a sparkle in your mind, or did it come later?
Well, I think it's a form. Most journalists have it in their mind that someday they're going to write a book, something more than an 800-page article or 800-word article.
Right.
And about 2 years before Midway arrived, I realized that no one had ever written a book on the 47-year odyssey of Midway. And here I am meeting with former cooks and admirals and captains and aviators almost every day in planning the museum. And that was the epiphany. The book was sitting in front of me, so to speak. So I wrote it, interviewed a whole lot of people, obviously, in research, turned down a contract offer from Random House because they weren't able to publish it when Midway was going to open, found another publisher, and Midway Magic was the result.
Right.
And now, 10 10 books have followed and different subjects, all basically World War II.
Yeah, right. And what's interesting about it, so the first book came out in 2004?
Yes.
Right. And so, and now here we are, 2025. Number 12 is coming out in 2026. But once you got the bug, so to speak,
yes.
And of course, you do have a full-time job.
By day.
Exactly. And you are a dedicated, husband and,
sure.
and a father as well. I've been honored to meet your family multiple times on this. So you, lived off a 1 hour a day of sleeping? Is that about right?
Pretty much. That was my night job, if you will. It's a passion, obviously. You don't do that.
Right.
The joke and authorship is also you don't want to quit your day job. But it became a real passion in all seriousness when I realized the extraordinary bravery and sacrifice of these 19-year-olds. And I've discovered other storylines along that line, usually from World War II, that haven't been told. It's ironically, each time I've been writing a book, the next idea surfaced during that research. So I've always had the next one in mind and have a great publisher in England, and it's been very rewarding.
Well, your success is, off the charts. Congratulations to you. You're a sought-after author on this. Are any of the books going to be possibly turned into some films?
Well, yes. I hope so. One, Honor Before Glory, about the Japanese Americans who volunteered from behind internment camps to become the most decorated battalion of its size in World War II, called Honor Before Glory. That has been optioned by a Los Angeles film producer. And I know the screenplay has been drafted. There are still many, many steps before it would ever possibly see the light of day. But it is in development, and fingers are crossed.
Do you get involved with the screenplay at all?
To some extent, well down the road, if the financing comes through and it begins to get ready for production, I'll probably serve as some degree of a technical advisor.
Right.
So ultimately, at the end of the day, the producer and director have the final say. But most of these movies, as you know, have some sort of technical advisor, and it's often the author of the inspirational book that started the process.
Right, exactly. Talk about the 12th book.
Well, the 12th book is called Sitting Ducks. Last year, I wrote a book about the glider pilots of World War II who did incredible things behind enemy lines, and no one had ever written a book about the pilots who towed them into enemy territory at Normandy and so on. So Sitting Ducks is a true story about World War II pilots who flew the paratroopers and glider infantry into enemy territory only 1,000 feet off the ground at Normandy and across Europe. These guys flew missions over what was called the rock pile, the Himalayas, into China. And they did it all in a modified, defenseless commercial airliner, the DC-3.
Wow.
Their mantra, I loved what one shared with me. If you ain't got bullets, you got to have guts.
Oh, my goodness. That is it. That's great. We're chatting with Scott McGaugh. He's the founding marketing director and current board member for the USS Midway Museum, New York Times bestselling author. His latest book, Sitting Ducks, will debut in June of 2026. I'm Drew Schlosberg of Cloudcast Media, listening to another edition of Drew Schlosberg Spotlight on the Community Show. We are the nation's longest running community podcast in our 19th year, brought to you by Mission Fed Credit Union, 6 decades of doing great things for folks in San Diego County. So have you already got idea for book 13, or let me get through book 12? And are you through book 12 now, and it's just being ready to be published?
The manuscript's been submitted, 80-some thousand words, which is probably the distillation of 500,000 words in drafts. Right now, because of the timeline and the pipeline, I don't have much to do, but there's still a lot of editing that will go back and forth.
Right.
I just saw 14 different design options for the cover, providing input and feedback. So there are a lot of building blocks that people don't realize. They think that I'm going to write a book, turn in my term paper, and I'll be done with it. There's a lot more to be done. However, honestly, you and your audience are first to hear this. For the first time in 22 years, I don't have my next idea.
Oh, okay.
It's really disconcerting, to be honest with you. I enjoy it so much. I've got a couple of concepts that I'm vetting right now to see if there's enough material to carry the idea. But I'm not working on one at this very moment, but I hope to change that soon.
Now, are your books pretty much focused on World War II?
Generally, the New York Times bestseller was about a remarkable surgeon in the Civil War.
Oh, okay.
It just kind of worked out that way, and so on. But generally, it's much more contemporary. Seems to have settled more on World War II. Not really intentionally, but that's kind of where it's evolved over the years.
Yeah, and that's a passion for me, as you well know.
Yes.
My father fought at Guadalcanal, and which was a brutal battle, to say the least. And anybody who's traveled to New Orleans can see the National, World War II Museum, which is have you been there?
Yes,
it's spectacular. It's like it's a Smithsonian in New Orleans, basically, in this area on it. So, have you done one on Guadalcanal at all?
No, I haven't. At this point, two challenges: finding material that hasn't already been written about World War II,
right?
And two, to be honest with you, there aren't many World War II veterans to interview and reliably recall that sort of thing. So. That's a challenge at this point. I always want to, break ground, if you will, with something new and different. And it really has become a passion for me, like your father.
Yeah.
The only thing we knew about my dad was that he built bridges and cleared minefields, Army Corps of Engineer, in front of Patton across Europe.
Oh, my goodness.
When he came home, as a kid, we were informed we do not discuss the war in our house. So this is kind of an indirect way to begin to experience a little bit of what my father and 16 million other Americans endured in World War II.
That's so interesting because my dad never said he didn't want to discuss the war. He really never did, except just the nature of my dad. He passed away like you're one of your parents a long time ago. Dad only talked about the fun things of the war, which sounds like an oxymoron. So he taught the natives in New Guinea, who played a very critical role in World War II, as you know, how to play tennis. He talked about how they snuck a wallaby on the ship in Sydney, and someone goes, "That's not true." I go, "Listen, they're in the middle of a terrible war. The captain is going to say, if you want a wallaby on the ship, that's fine on this." Scott, what can people do to get engaged with the Midway? Can they volunteer? Is there a process? Sure. How does that work?
Two things immediately come to mind. One is absolutely, we're always looking for volunteers. The website, midway.org, they can obviously navigate there, and they can very quickly get to the volunteer section and get a sense of where the need is. Everything from, licking envelopes to being a docent. There's a huge variety when we have 700 already, but there's always a need. They're welcome. There's a great volunteer recognition program. Our volunteers don't leave, and for good reason, thanks to Mac and Terry's leadership and so on. So that's one opportunity. The other is Freedom Park in a broader sense. Fundraising is continuing. The general, again, through midway.org, you can buy a brick and honor your father or your mother or anyone who served as a veteran. A lot of people are doing that. That will be permanently part of Navy Pier, Burnham Navy Pier.
Right.
There's a matching program going on right now with some corporate donors and others. Navy Pier is now called Malin Burnham Navy Pier. And there are a lot of people in San Diego who want to honor his leadership by supporting his Freedom Park, if you will, on Burnham Navy Pier. So several opportunities through the Midway website.
That's good. Well, Scott McGaugh, it's always a pleasure having you on. The time goes way too fast.
Yes.
Promise me you'll come back on sooner than later. I do want to really almost dedicate a whole session on authorship. We have a lot of authors that are on our show. They talk about the process of doing it.
Right.
And there's 55 billion different things that are in between, the making of the veal, I guess, as they say, or the pork or something like that. So promise me you'll come back and we'll hear more great things coming out of Scott McGaugh.
Always my pleasure, Drew. I'd look forward to it.
Very good. Scott McGaugh is the founding director and current board member for the USS Midway Museum. I'm Drew Schlosberg of Cloudcast Media, listening to another edition of Drew Schlosberg's Spotlight on the Community Show, brought to you by Mission Fed Credit Union. To our listeners, we hope you enjoyed the interview.
You've been listening to an episode of Drew Schlosberg's Spotlight on the Community Show, amplifying the voices of social impact organizations, entrepreneurs, local nonprofits, and other community champions who shape the culture, creativity, and connectivity of San Diego community. Brought to you by Mission Fed Credit Union, bringing good things to San Diego for over 60 years. Learn more about what is good for you and good for all by visiting www.missionfed.com.
Cloudcast Media.